And do you remember when that hand was in the back of our sanctuary like that? Now, what was my dream? The hand was up like this. There's a gigantic hand right on the backstage of our church. I fell to my knees on the stage. Because God gave me something that only He can do. And it has been a very difficult thing to get going. But when I look in that sanctuary on Sundays, I see that whole place filled, rafters to the floor, with people worshiping Jesus. God didn't give us that sanctuary to be empty. He gave it to be filled. And that's what I pray for. That we would be a church. Bent tree, bend your knee. That's what we heard at Mission Festival. That's my heart for this church. It's my heart for us as women. It's my heart for us as men in this church, sons and daughters. Let the worshipers arise. Let's not wait for the next tragedy to call a meeting where we worship God. Let's do it as a regular habit of our church, as the heartbeat, the DNA of our church. You know, it's interesting. God likes to show off every single one of the 4 downpours. It's rained. Every single one. And it's like God just says to me, I did it because I can. I'm only saying this to you because this is so recent in my life, praying bold, believing prayers. And at the same time, seeking counsel in my relationship with my deceased dad about the unforgiveness in my own heart. And dealing with that seriously because I don't want my prayers to be hindered. I want to call you up higher, call you a little deeper into praying bold, believing prayers. If these verses mean anything, they should call us to a bolder, more faith-based prayer life that asks God for things that only He can do. All right, let's go to the third statement. Mark chapter 11. This is on Tuesday now. These sections of scripture from 11:27 all the way to 13:33 happened on Tuesday. I guess that was enough on Monday to shrivel a fig tree and be done with that and say all those things and cleanse the temple and get out of town fast. So now Jesus retreats and comes back in on Tuesday, and now he's questioned by, of course, the scribes and the Pharisees. They are always questioning his authority. That's happened all throughout the book of Mark. And remember, I told you the reason it happens is because Mark is the book of a servant, a nameless, pedigreeless servant. It's the only gospel that, except for the non-synoptic gospel, John, unlike Matthew and Luke, it does not have a pedigree for Jesus, doesn't have his lineage, doesn't have his credentials. Mark is just, he appears on the scene. And so this authority of Jesus is questioned over and over and over again. And this leads us to the question that I have here, the statement, is to look to Jesus as your final authority. Look to Jesus as your final authority. Look at verse 29 in chapter 11. After they question him, who gives you authority to do these things? He's just cleansed the temple, and they're saying to him, okay, you're the one that cleansed the temple yesterday. By what authority are you doing these things, by the way? And Jesus says in verse 29, I will ask you one question. Answer me and I will tell you by what authority I'm doing these things. John's baptism, was it from heaven or of human origin? Tell me. And as usual, when Jesus asks a question, there's dead silence on the other part because no one knows how to really answer it. And then the Bible peels back the discussion that's going on in their minds. And here's what it says. They discussed it among themselves. Can you imagine them saying, okay, we're caught between a rock and a hard place here. Who wants to talk first? Okay, if we say from heaven, John's baptism is from heaven, he will ask, then why don't you believe in John? Okay, but if we say of human origin, oh no, we're cooked. Okay, they fear the people, for everyone held that John was really a prophet. Now, they're trying to figure out, the pollster, what is the pulse of the people? We don't want to get in trouble here. And so they answer Jesus with a resounding, duh, basically. Which basically says, you caught us red-handed. We don't really want to know the answer to the question. We really just hate your guts. not me, but Jesus. Jesus says, well, then I won't tell you by what authority I'm doing these things. I won't. I don't have to, and I won't. Jesus doesn't answer to anyone but the Father. Here's the statement. Look to Jesus as your final authority, period. Look to Jesus, and you can put there in his word. Look to Jesus as your final authority, period. Period. Study books are great. Small groups are great. Ask people who have studied these things and consult commentaries and dictionaries and all of those things. They will expand your understanding. But at the bottom of it all, Jesus has the final authority in our lives, period. It's not Pete Briscoe. It's not Chuck Swindoll. It's not anyone on the radio. It's not your small group leader. It is the Bible and Jesus and his words of spirit and life. They are the final authority in your life. Have you made that determination that you will rest your entire life on the final authority of Jesus Christ? And you can think to yourself, well, yeah, I have. Yeah. I was talking to a lady last night in this other Bible study, a beautiful older lady in her 60s. She's retired now. She's lost a lot of her retirement in the recent economic strife that we're having all around the world. And she came to me last night after Bible study with tears in her eyes, and she says, I am so desperately frightened. And I said, well, honey, why are you frightened? And she said, well, not only have I lost major retirement money from my investment accounts, but I am so scared of this election. I keep listening to all the news and all the stuff that's coming and all the radio, and I read all this stuff, and I'm very political, and I'm very, very worried. Because if so-and-so gets elected, do you know what all that's going to mean? And I took her by the shoulders. She's weeping. I took her by the shoulders and I said, Jesus is still on the throne. This election does not minimize the sovereignty of God. Jesus cannot be thwarted in his purpose. The church will